Get ready. What's up, people? Happy holidays. Rip's got his arms doing crazy things. What's up, everybody? We are here. It is Plant Strong Live. I'm here with New York Times bestselling author and founder of Plant Strong Foods, Rip Esselstyn. Rip, how's it going, my friend?
I'm feeling like John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever, baby.
Okay. Little
Woo, look at that. Look how fluid that is, huh? How about that?
Have you flossed? Have your kids told you how to floss yet?
I will take you on any day in the flossing competition.
I love it. I love seeing the Esselstyns in their flossing. Okay. Hey, guys, let us know where you're watching from. We're also broadcasting live on Go Plant Strong on Instagram Live. So what's up to all you guys? Listen, Instagram Live peeps. I'm going to talk to them for a second, you guys. Instagram Live peeps. You can hear everything because I've got Rip with me right now. So you're going to hear the whole presentation. You just won't be able to see some of the things we're talking about with sodium. But I want to first start. Is it okay, Rip, if I tell them about the holiday guide?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. As you're tuning in, telling us where you're watching from, guys, we have a brand new holiday guide. It's totally free, and it's everything you need to have a Plant Strong holiday. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate for your holiday, we've got you covered. All you have to do is go to that URL below, plantstrongfoods.com/holiday, and we're going to hook you up with the most savory, delicious, amazing, Plant Strong approved recipes that you can find. Just tell us your name and email. We'll send it right to you. Now, Rip, you've seen some of these, yeah?
What do you mean? I'm holding up the table of contents right here, right from this bad boy. And I want you all to know that, I'm just going to go through some of these recipes because this will make your Thanksgiving, your Christmas, like no other. So cranberry salsa, Plant Strong stuffing, savory wild mushroom kasha, Plant Strong harvest salad, Ruth's celery salad. This celery salad will knock your socks off.
Wow. Sweet
Holy Deliciousness soup, a cauliflower pot roast, a pumpkin and white bean soup with roasted Brussels sprouts, Lynn's meatloaf, which is actually from the first Engine 2 diet book, is phenomenal. Mushrooms Mommy gravy, that's going to go over all of your mashed potatoes, your quote unquote meatloafs, all those things. Tempeh brisket, berry crumble cookie, guilt-free apple crisp, reindeer crunch cookies, and a Plant Strong pumpkin pie. What's there not to like about that? And it's free. It's free.
It's totally free, guys. Listen, it's going to unlock some special stuff for you once you opt in. We got you covered. And holy cow, guys, we're just getting started on Black Friday. In fact, we'll be happy to let you know our first Black Friday deal a little bit later in the show. But we're here today to talk about sodium. And there's a lot of hidden sodium everywhere. I'm going to let Rip get right into it. And we're going to be here for, the next 40 minutes, 45 minutes. We're going to take some questions. So as you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We're going to get to as many as we can. But, we're streaming live over on YouTube, on Facebook Live. We're here on Instagram Live. And Instagram peeps, I'm going to reverse the camera for you so you can actually see Rip and talk to him. So you hang out. But Rip, the floor is yours. Talk to us. What do we need to watch out for with sodium?
Yeah. So before we talk about what we want to watch out for in sodium, and I want to show you how to read a label and what to look for as far as, packaged, boxed, and canned goods. And I'm going to actually present with you a slideshow. And we're going to actually go shopping down the aisle. But before I do that, I think it's important, Corey, and everybody out there, that we level set. So let's talk a little bit about salt. I talk about salt, sugar, and fat in all of my books. In the 7-Day Rescue book, I specifically talk about, all of the hidden dangers of salt, sugar, and fat, how they're so ubiquitous in the food supply, and how each and every one of these, salt, sugar, and fat, is essential to our health. But at the same time, it can also be very destructive to it when we consume these in the copious amounts that we as Americans typically do. And there's 2 books that, just at the very, very top of this, that I recommend that if anybody wants to do a deeper dive into these books, and I'll show them in the slideshow here in about 15, 20 minutes so you can get a visual. But the first is Dr. David Kessler's The End of Overeating. And just so you know, this is a man of credibility. This is the former head of the Food and Drug Administration during the Clinton and Bush administrations, presidencies. And he wrote this book, The End of Overeating, and he talks about how these food companies, they put salt on top of sugar, on top of fat, and then they have the unmitigated gall to put more salt on top of sugar, on top of fat, and then they do it again. And when you look at the ingredient list of many of the products that we're consuming on a daily basis, you'll find 3 or 4 or 5, sugars in there. You will find, salt, enough salt to pickle your whole entire family. And of course, there's like 4, 5, 6 different types of oil in there. So, but as I said, today we're going to talk about salt. And so salt, or sodium chloride, it's a chemical compound that contains a metal, sodium, and a halogen, chloride. Now, interestingly enough, by weight, catch this, by weight, 3.5% of our planet's oceans are pure salt. And we've all, been swimming in the oceans, and you get a little gulp of that water and you're like, whoa, that is salty. Well, 3.5% of the planet's oceans are comprised of salt. So you may be saying, well, how bad can salt be? I mean, it's everywhere, right? Well, according to a 2012 review in The Lancet, too much salt is actually killing roughly 9 million people worldwide every year. That is the equivalent, Corey, of the population of Hungary. Corey, have you ever been to Hungary, Budapest? No?
I have not. I have not.
Okay. Well, I used to date a Hungarian woman back in the 90s, and her name was Piroska,
okay,
which stands for Little Red Riding Hood. Okay. And so I spent several summers over in Hungary. Beautiful people, wonderful country. 10 million people live in Hungary.
Wow.
When I think of 9 million people worldwide each year perishing basically from too much salt, I immediately think, wow, that's like the whole population of Hungary.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So just, a little aside there, but yeah. So now we need sodium to maintain, for example, electrical currents in our muscles and our nerves, to regulate our blood pressure, and to maintain a healthy pH level in our bodies.
Yep.
But ingesting too much can make things go very much haywire. Now, however, on the flip side, ingesting less sodium takes a lot of pressure off of our blood vessels. And so I think probably everybody listening right now knows roughly what their blood pressure is. And it's basically comprised of 2 numbers. Do you know yours, Corey?
My blood numbers?
Your blood pressure. Do you know what your blood pressure is?
I just got my blood work done like last week. So I don't know it off the top of my head. No, but I know that it was well below the normal range.
Okay. So basically there's 2 numbers. And like mine recently was 116/66. And the upper number is called the systolic, and the lower number is called the diastolic. The systolic basically is a function, and it lets you know the pressure that's being exerted on your arteries when that heart muscle contracts, okay? When it pumps like that.
Okay.
The lower number, the diastolic, is a function of the amount of pressure that's on our arteries when that heart muscle relaxes. Okay. So the systolic and the diastolic. And so according to the American Heart Association and others, we want to have a blood pressure that's 120 over 80. That's like kind of considered normal.
Okay.
However, believe it or not, we now have 113 million people. That's 1/3 of America that is considered hypertensive, meaning they have a blood pressure over 140 over 90.
Wow.
And in fact, high blood pressure is known as a silent killer because usually there's absolutely zero symptoms. So in fact, the Global Burden of Disease study, and I think this is really important for everybody to hear, which involved over 300 institutions across 50 different countries, concluded, catch this, Corey and team, that high blood pressure is the #1 worldwide risk factor for death, resulting in fatal heart attacks, strokes, and other catastrophic organ failures. All right.
Wow.
So again, and that's just because we're just consuming too much of these little white crystals, right? So
Yep.
then let's talk about what's going on. So the basic issue is that salt encourages fluid retention in our body. So Corey, have you ever been out to a restaurant and you're eating the restaurant food and, because we are kind of dialed into when something has too much sodium, you're like, wow, this is high in salt. And then a couple hours later, you just feel like everything is kind of like you're retaining fluid. You look down at your feet, they're swollen. Your hands are like your marriage ring is like tight. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, almost all of us do, right? And so the salt encourages fluid retention in our bodies. And this puts like damaging pressure on our blood vessels all over our body, including our very sensitive and vascular in nature kidneys. And what happens is our arteries, they start to bulge to accommodate the extra fluid because of the sodium. And we have tiny muscles that are inside of all of our arteries. And what they start to do in an attempt to support that extra pressure, they actually start to beef up. It's like, these little muscles inside our arteries are starting to lift weights, right? Thinking
right.
So they get a little bit bigger. But this, ironically, it only makes our blood passageways smaller, which increases our blood pressure and contributes to plaque buildup. All right. So you may be asking, well, what's the best way to prevent this? By cutting back on those little white rocks, which we call salt. Now, I'm going to throw out a couple more studies, and then we're going to get real. So, for example, an analysis in the British Medical Journal determined if we were able to reduce our salt intake by a measly half a teaspoon per day, that's only 1,150 milligrams because, in case you weren't aware, 1 little teaspoon of salt is 2,300 milligrams.
Wow.
So if we were able to decrease our salt intake by half a teaspoon a day, we could prevent 22% of fatal strokes and 16% of fatal heart attacks. Now, that is not insignificant. Agree?
Agreed.
Right. Now, there's also a study that came out recently, but from the New England Journal of Medicine, very prestigious, medical journal, that proclaimed that a reduction of salt of 3 grams per day, and just to put that into perspective and level set, there's 4 grams in a teaspoon of salt. So if we're trying to reduce our salt intake 3 grams, that's basically like 1,800 milligrams. And this will make a lot more sense as we give you guys some examples. If we were able to reduce our salt intake 3 grams per day, that would save roughly 400,000 quality adjusted life years and $24 billion in health care costs annually. Wow. So that to me it's something that we should pay attention to. Yeah. And, Corey, and anybody that's been to any of our 6 or 7 day medical immersion retreats, we see people that come in and they're on hypertensive medication. They are, their blood pressures are way higher than they want them to be. And on average, in 6-7 days, people's blood pressure is coming down 10 on the top number, the systolic number, and 5 on the diastolic number, 10 over 5. And that's the average. We have some people that have come down 60 over 40. It varies. But the good news here is that most of these people, Corey, as you know, have been told that they'll be on these medications for the rest of their lives. And they have all kinds of side effects, and people do not typically like being on meds because, as we know, it doesn't truly get to the root causation of the issue.
Right.
What it does is it masks it.
Yep.
And so this is super exciting for people to, in 6-7 days, oh my God, I'm down from 140 over 90 to 116 over 66. This is actually working.
Yep.
And of course, one of the reasons is, besides eating a whole food plant-based diet over the course of the 6-7 days, we use very minimal to no added sodium in any of our dishes. So I want to repeat this. And I think that the science is very clear that too much sodium, and this is going to sound very basic, but I'm going to repeat it. Too much sodium leads to high blood pressure, which leads to early death. All right?
Yeah.
Nice correlation there.
Yeah.
Now, maybe many of you are saying, well, but it's not easy to just cut out salt, is it? Because as we all know, it is ubiquitous. It is absolutely everywhere. So we have to take our health into our own hands, and we have to learn to outfox the foxes. And the foxes are basically, it's big food. All right. Yeah. So this is where I want to show you guys some slides, and I'm going to ask Bess, who's also kind of helping us out here, to help me with, if you could pull up those slides, Bess.
Hey, Rip, can I pause you for a quick second? I want to give a shout out to our people that are watching live on Instagram. So guys, if you can see me right now, a couple of people are like, hey, what's this video? Why are you videoing a video? The truth is like, we can't simulcast to Instagram live from our platform. So if you want like the full experience and you can see everything beautifully, go over to Facebook, the Facebook page for Plant Strong. But a lot of people are like, oh my God, thank you so much for showing the screen, because you can see Rip and stuff like that. So I'm going to take you back. You could still be able to see the presentation and everything's good to go. So Rip, proceed.
So as I said at the top of the presentation, there's 2 books that I think if anybody wants a deeper dive that you can read, actually several, but one is The End of Overeating by David Kessler, the former head of the Food and Drug Administration. And the other is Michael Moss. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, #1 New York Times bestseller. He wrote the book called Salt, Sugar, and Fat: How the Food Giants have literally hooked us, hook, line, and sinker. And then there's another one. I actually had him on the Plant Strong podcast a couple months ago, Michael Jacobson. He wrote a book called Salt, which is also really, really brilliant. So if we go to the next slide, Bess. So salt, right? The average American is consuming between 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams per day. That's not per 2 or 3 days. That's per day. And according to the Institute of Medicine and the American Heart Association, we actually want to be closer to 1,500 milligrams per day. All right. So just to kind of level set where we are and where we want to be. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. So sodium. Next, if you could click. Okay. So let's go over the daily required amount is 500 milligrams. Okay. So that's the recommended safe minimum. Next. The average U.S. intake, as we just talked about, is between 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams. And the recommended ranges, again, this is according to the Institute of Medicine, 1,200 to 1,500 milligrams with an upper limit of 2,300. All right. And if you're like under age 50, it's 1,500. If you're over age 50, it's 1,300. If you're over age 70, it's 1,200. And if you're over age 80, you know what? They say you can do whatever the heck you want. All right. Good for you. Next, please. And 1 teaspoon of salt is roughly 2,200 milligrams. All right. Next slide. Next. Okay. So this is something that I learned from a very, very brilliant dietitian, Jeff Novick, as far as like how to read a label. And so we want to take the calories per day and the sodium, and we want to find a ratio here. So if you go to the next one, so you see calories per day roughly are 2,300, and the upper limit is 2,300. That's roughly 1 teaspoon. So the ratio there is 1 to 1. So when we're looking at a label, we want to look at the number of calories per serving, and then we want to immediately go down to the number of milligrams of sodium per serving, and we want those to be roughly the same. And the exception is, of course, condiments like ketchup, mustard, tomato sauces, stuff like that, because we know that we're just putting a little bit on there. And with those, we're actually okay if instead of being in a 1-to-1 guideline, 1-to-1 relationship, it's more like 1 to 5, 1 to 6, sometimes even 1 to 10. And I'll show you some examples here. So where's all the salt coming from? Like, why is it that most of us are getting 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams of sodium every single day? Well, let's take a look. So you can see here, 5% is coming from home cooking, when we actually add sodium when we're cooking our mashed potatoes or put it into our soup. 6% is coming topically when we add it with the salt shaker. All right. And then naturally occurring 12%. That's just naturally there in your spinach, in your baked potatoes, in your apple, in your carrots. Now, processed and restaurant foods, almost 80%. So this is coming from a package, a box, or a can, and restaurant foods. Wow. Okay. So it's very apparent to me where we got to really focus on doing some damage to bring down the salt. All right, next slide. So I want to give you some examples here of some sodium in restaurant and packaged foods, so you can just start to get an idea of the ridiculous amounts of food that they put in there. And they do it intentionally because they know the more salt that they can get away with in the food is the greater likelihood they have of you either returning and coming back to that restaurant or you buying that product again. So you can see here, the Red Lobster Admiral Feast has 5,000 milligrams of sodium just in that meal. If you go to the Cheesecake Factory and you get the breakfast burrito, that little guy there, or big guy or gal, has 3,640 milligrams. Holy Toledo. If you're back, right, if you're completely over COVID and you're back at the AMC theater and you happen to pull down that Bavarian Legend soft pretzel, that's 7,600 milligrams of sodium in that. I mean, wow, like Katie barred the door. That's crazy. Next. Amy's low-fat, chunky vegetable soup. That's 1,440 milligrams in a can. So that's roughly 720 per serving because there's 2 servings in that can. Next, you got the 365 organic vegetable broth. It's 500 milligrams in a cup. And then Pepper Ridge Farm hearty white bread, 460 milligrams per slice. So this is why, and I'm going to show you right in a second here, how we got to learn to read labels and what to look for. All right, next, please. So, for example, just because 2 products look identical does not mean that they are the same nutritionally. So you can see here we have the Near East, the original plain couscous, and we have the tomato lentil couscous. But let's turn over and look at the nutritional facts panel to get the whole story. So if you can click again, Bess. So you can see here, let's play the game. Well, go back if you can, and if it's Bess, I'll tell you when to go. Okay, go now. Okay, see, first thing we want to look at is calories, and our calories are 220. Now, everybody at home, I'm going to ask you a question. So what do we want our milligrams of sodium to be at or under? 220, right? So let's go to sodium. Next, Bess. It's 5 milligrams. That is an absolute winner. We love it, right? That is way below 220. Home run. All right, let's now check out the tomato lentil. And you'll see here, our calories are 190. All right. Now, what do we want our milligrams of sodium to be, everybody? The answer is 190 or less. And what are they? Whoa, they're 670 milligrams. Two products that look almost identical, but vary incredibly when it comes to the sodium. All right. So you're starting to get the hang of this now. All right. Next slide, Bess. So I want to show you, we've removed all of the muscle of the human heart, and this is the vascular nature of our hearts. And I want you to just think about when you're putting in that Bavarian pretzel, that's 7,600 milligrams of sodium just in that one pretzel, right? That doesn't include the whole day's worth. Why do you think we have close to 113 million people that are hypertensive? Why do you think the number one cause of death in this country is heart attacks? Look at all those vessels, and we're compromising the integrity of those vessels by consuming so much salt. In addition, of course, to all the fat and the sugar, but we're focusing today on salt. But I love that slide. Corey, can you believe like how many vessels are in the heart? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, it just looks, it's kind of beautiful, you know, the way you look at it.
It's a piece of work. It really is. But this is why, like I asked my father once, Corey, like what's the most number of stents that any one of the patients that you're consulting has ever come to you with? And you may know the answer, but what do you think? How many?
I'm going to guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 7.
Well, you got the number 7 right, but you need to put something in front of that 7. It's 47.
Oh no, you got to be kidding me. And these 47. Are stents all over the body, right?
47 stents. And it's basically like they're playing surgical whack-a-mole. Like, hey, you know what? You got another blockage. We will just we'll fix it up and then come back if you got something else going on. So it's just an indication of how we're not getting to the root causation of what's going on. All right, Bess, you can go to the next slide. Thanks. All right.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to Vicky. She is in all caps saying, "This is the best and most informative live I've ever seen."
Oh, well, that's great. Thank you. So let's talk. Let's read some labels and go through and see just how egregious they can get with the sodium. And first, I want to say, let's talk about some of the worst offenders, the worst salt offenders. And according to the CDC, the top 10 contributors of sodium in our diets are, what do you think number 1 is? It is bread and rolls. Do you remember back to the example I showed you where that Pepperidge Farm white bread was 460 milligrams in one slice? And most of us will put 2 slices when we're making a sandwich. That's almost 1,000 milligrams just in that one little sandwich. So bread and rolls are number 1 at 7.4%. Okay. And you can see here, this is not egregious, but it's just an indication of how, Bess, if you could click. So you can see, this is kind of enticing us in. It says 100% whole wheat, and it says nutritious and delicious. All right, I'm intrigued. Serving size is 1 slice. Calories are 60. So according to our guidelines, everybody, I'm not going to answer for you. What do we want the milligrams of sodium to be at? 60 or less. And you can see here, the sodium is 130 milligrams. So that is roughly 2x, right? So that's greater in sodium. You can go to the next one. And then, I always like to look at the ingredients. You can see here, about the 5th ingredient is soybean oil. And then we got a lot of other nonsense here. So this isn't going to pass my sniff test. So it's a big thumbs down. All right, let's go to the next one. So I want to show you something that I actually love, and that is the Food for Life Ezekiel 4:9 low sodium breads. If you can click, Best, let's see, Food for Life. You can see low sodium there, right? So I'm intrigued, and you can see the calories. So 1 slice is 80 calories. So what do we want our sodium to be at? 80 or less. And you can see here, it is 0. I'm like, wow. So if any of you are really trying to bring down your sodium, you're hypertensive, I highly recommend that you get some of this Ezekiel bread. You can see here, it's well under our 1-to-1 sodium, and the ingredients are just absolutely solid here. So this is a big thumbs up. All right, next slide, please, Bess. So let's play around now with some condiments. So this is some Heinz tomato ketchup. You can see here it says no sugar added. A lot of us, are trying to get away from added sugars, so they're very perceptive as far as what to put and what to call out on the front of that ketchup. But let's do a deep dive and see what they've increased because they've taken out the sugar. And my bet is it's probably the sodium. So we can see our calories in 1 tablespoon are 10. So again, with that's okay. That's okay, Bess. You just do your best there. Yeah. So you can see here, remember, with the exception to the rule with the 1-to-1 is condiments, where we're actually okay if you go 5 to 10x. But this is 200 milligrams. So this is actually 20x. So I'm not gonna let this one fly. And you can also see here that they have sucralose. They say there's no sugar added, but the last ingredient is sucralose. And then they actually have a nice little asterisk saying not normally found in ketchup. So, wow. I mean, but hey, I don't know why it's in this ketchup then. So this is a big thumbs down. Let's go to this next one, which actually says no salt added. So I'm intrigued. Well, let's check it out. A serving size is 1 tablespoon. The calories are 20. The sodium is, look at that, it's 5. But now I'm thinking, okay, if the sodium is that low in ketchup, something's got to be off. So let's go and check the ingredients. The sugar, there's 4 grams, which means in 1 tablespoon, they have put in, remember, there's 4 grams in a teaspoon. That means there's 1 teaspoon of sugar in 1 tablespoon of ketchup. And you can see here, the ingredients, tomato concentrate from red ripe tomatoes. Our second ingredient, gang, is high fructose corn syrup. And then our 5th one is corn syrup. Hit it again, Jess, Best. Yeah, there you go. And so this is a big thumbs down. Now let's find one that hopefully we can use in our Plant Strong worlds. Look at this. Good food for good. Okay. So it says no added sugar on the front. And it says, what does it say? Softened only with dates or sweetened only with dates. Sweetens. My screen's kind of small here. So we look at the number of calories per serving in a tablespoon, and it's 10. I like it. Let's look at the sodium. The sodium is 65. So remember, 65, it's obviously over 1-to-1, but remember condiments, I'm going to allow 5 to 10x. So I'm intrigued. I like that. Now let's go to added sugars. And there's actually just date paste, which is actually a whole food. So you know what? I am all about this. So good for you. Good food for good. That's a funny tongue twister there.
It is. It's a great product. This is hugely helpful. Thank you.
Oh yeah. So we talked about this earlier, but let's just take a little bit of a longer gander at this. And this is our Amy's Organic Soups. And I want you to know that the number five on the list of the worst salt offenders, according to the CDC, are soups. And so you can see here this organic soup. It says chunky vegetable. It's low fat. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. Serving size is 1 cup. Servings per container are 2. So I'm going to eat this whole thing. Calories are 80. And it is low fat, right? I mean, it's 15% of the calories are coming from fat. So that passes my sniff test. But we go down to the sodium, and gang, it's 720 milligrams. And I'm going to eat that whole can. I know you will too, Corey. That's going to be 1,440 milligrams. Remember, if you're under 50, you don't want to go over 1,500. And for those of us that are 50 to 60, 60 to 70, we want to be more like 1,400 or 1,300. So this basically blows our whole day right here. So that's a big thumbs down. Now, let's see. Oh, now, obviously, guys, I'm going to push some of our products because I'm super proud of them. And I love what we've done here. So this is our Plant Strong Firehouse Chili. You can see here on the front, we say 100% plant-based, no added sugar, lightly salted and oil-free. There's 2 servings per container. 1 serving is a cup. You can see calories per serving are 180. If you eat the whole box, it's 370. And our sodium is 180. So look at that. It's directly in that 1-to-1 kind of ratio we're looking for. And then if you eat the whole box, you're at 360. So we're good there. We're no added sugars. We're absolutely clean with organic ingredients all throughout. This is a big green thumbs up. Corey, can you give me a kale yeah?
Kale yeah, baby. Kale yeah.
Yeah. Now, before we go on, Bess, don't go on yet. I want you all to know that what's really important here is the totality of what you're eating during the course of the day. So, for example, if you're eating a whole food, plant-based diet the way most of us are that are on this live broadcast, you're probably getting 400 to 500 milligrams just naturally from your spinach. So, for example, a cup of spinach is 24 milligrams. A large baked potato, russet baked potato, is right around 50 milligrams. A half a cup of brown rice is 5 milligrams. A grilled portobello mushroom is about 15 milligrams. A small apple is 2, but you get the picture. So if you're hardly eating any packaged, canned, and box foods during the day, I'm okay if you're like, you go outside that 1-to-1 guideline. And on several of our chilies and stews, we do that, right? We are more sitting at like 220, 240, 260. So I want you to know, this is, as I said at the top, this is a guideline. It's not a hard and fast rule based upon what do your days look like in totality. That's the important thing. And so if I knock this back, Corey, and I get 370, and I know I'm getting 500 from all the other food I'm eating, and then I have 2 pieces of bread that are 130 each, and some other things, I know I'm sitting well below that 1,500 milligram, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one, please, Bess. So the another huge offender are broths. I mean, oh God, they're just loaded to the gills. And so you can see this 365 organic vegetable broth is serving size is 1 cup. Calories are 5, and you can see here our sodium is 540. So that's a lot higher than I would ever want in a broth that I'm making as a base for my chilies, my stews, my soups, stir fries, stuff of that nature. Yep. Okay. Next slide, please. So this is another broth. This is the organic Imagine vegetable broth. It even says on the cover, low sodium. And let's look at the calories. Calories are 20 per cup. We look at the sodium, it is 140. So this is like 7x the number of calories. So it's, this actually qualifies as low sodium in the broth world, but it's higher than I want. And if you also look at the ingredients, you'll see here, we also have oil in here. We got canola oil and safflower oil and some other things. So not a huge fan. That's going to be a thumbs down for me. And then again, just a little shameless plug for PLANTSTRONG. You can see here our veggie broth. We are 100% plant-based, no added sugar, no added salt, and oil-free. So 1 serving is 1 cup. Calories are 5. There you go, Bess. Calories are 5, and their sodium is 20. Now, I'm like, wow, there's 20 milligrams of sodium in there. Well, why is that? And then I want to go to the ingredients. And what you'll see here is water, carrots, celery, tomatoes, onions, leeks, carrot juice concentrate, tomato paste, garlic, bay leaves, organic thyme, and parsley. So there's not any salt added in this. So the salt that's in there, Corey, that 20 milligrams, is just all naturally occurring.
Love it.
I love it. And a lot of people think, well, if it doesn't have salt, it's not going to have flavor. Dead wrong. All of our stuff has really nice flavor. And which leads me to another topic I want to talk about here in just a second. But I think that might be the end of the slideshow. Bess, is that it?
Yep.
I think it is. Great.
It is. Yeah.
So in summary, Corey, I just want to say that, we got to learn to read labels, following that 1-to-1 guideline. Sure, it's okay, right, if we go over it, but just the important thing is what's going on with the totality of your day. let's be sure not to cook with salt. There's no reason that we need to cook with salt. What I recommend, if something needs a little more flavor, you need a little more punch, I get it, lightly salt your food with the salt shaker. And what we've learned, Corey and team and family, is that when you just lightly, topically salt whatever it is, whether it's that soup or that chili or that lasagna, that does it's an amazing trick to basically make you feel like, oh my God, this has got all the salt that I need. And that's because our tongues actually have over 10,000 taste receptors on them. And so just by lightly topically salting any dish you have, it will have a huge impact. Let me give you an example, Corey.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you this, and I want you to get the answer wrong. Okay. So what do you think has more salt in it? A slice of bread or a 1 ounce serving of Lay's potato chips?
Okay. Like I would think that the chips have more sodium.
Well,
right?
you would think that. You would think that. But because the salt is baked into the bread, you really don't understand. You can't sense how much sodium is actually in that Pepperidge Farm slice of white bread at 460 milligrams. Believe it or not, there's more. Yeah. So even though that, 1 ounce serving of baked potato chips would seem like it's more, because it's just on the surface of that potato chip, it immediately hits your mouth, hits the tongue, all those taste receptors, and you're like, oh my God, that's doing the trick for my salt cravings. So that's a huge lesson that I want people to don't cook with it, but topically apply it at the end if you feel like you need it. So let's read the labels, know the guidelines, don't cook with salt, lightly topically add salt to your food if you need it. And let's be sure to eat whole, strong, plant-based foods, and watch as your blood pressure drops and your taste buds absolutely come to life. And Lori and Corey, what we have found happens with people at our immersions and people that follow this for several weeks and several months is that your taste buds become much more mature and nuanced and sophisticated. And now you appreciate just like a banana or a car orange or a half a cup of sweet brown rice, but basmati rice, or that oatmeal that doesn't have 2 tablespoons of brown sugar on top of it, but instead has some fresh blueberries, a sliced banana, and a little bit of mango. So it's amazing when you can take back your palate that's been hijacked by big food and really take control of your health. So those are, some steps that I want everybody to start employing so that we can fight that blood pressure and the sudden fatalities from heart attacks and strokes that are so prevalent these days because of the ridiculous amount of salt that most of us are tripping over inadvertently.
Between the protein episode, the oil episode, and now we're talking about sodium, guys, we're trying to set you up for success as you start your Plant Strong journey. And, one of those things is that when you get started, it can seem like you're alone. It can seem like you're kind of just on your own. Maybe your family's not 100% bought in. Maybe you don't know where to start. Maybe you're struggling with snacks, right? So, of course, the food line is here. We want you to go check out plantstrongfoods.com. But even more than that, we want to let you know about our free community. And today is the day that we have actually relaunched our Facebook community. So we are so excited to let you know that the Facebook community is back. And so we want you to come join us over at the Plant Strong by Engine 2 community. It is welcome for everyone, and we are here to support you. And you'll find a welcome video from Rip. But what we want you to do is share with us what you're struggling with, because the group is going to help you out a lot. We've got a lot of questions here. And then just one more thing I wanted to mention, Rip, is at the top of the show, we talked about the brand new guide. And there's a link to the group right there, guys. If you just search Go Plant Strong, you'll be able to find our group. But We have a free guide for you for the holidays, and I want you to go check it out. The URL is at the very bottom. It's just plantstrongfoods.com/holiday, completely free. We'll hook you up with a wonderful guide that is every recipe you could ever imagine to go plant strong for the holidays. So, Rip, I just wanted to mention those things before we get to questions.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm looking at some questions here, and you guys, you're asking a lot of great questions. So thank you for that. Here's one by Earlia Glenn, and she says, with bread, isn't part of the problem that there are often various sodium sources used, not just table salt? Absolutely. Like, typically baking soda, baking powder is loaded with sodium. But there are also, believe it or not, baking powders and baking sodas that actually don't contain sodium. And as you saw in that example with the Food for Life bread, they don't have any baking soda or baking powder in them, and it's all naturally sprouted, and they've done just fine with it. So, but yeah, you got to be really careful with breads for sure. And it's another reason, like we recommend that people following our Engine 2 7-day rescue guidelines, that you do open face sandwiches. Not only because, you're minimizing the calories if you're trying to lose weight, but exactly because a lot of us, for whatever reason, have a different bread in our freezer besides the Ezekiel. And then that's going to give you 80 to 100 milligrams of sodium instead of 200. So do open face sandwiches, really smart.
Well, we're going to go over to a couple starred questions that we have. We're going to put them up on the screen one by one, and we'll just kind of address them very quickly, guys. We've got about 10 minutes left. So if you are watching, thanks so much. Debbie says, okay, I'm whole food plant-based. I have extremely low blood pressure, consuming 1/2 to 3/4 teaspoon a day of salt. Should I still cut back further in regards to low blood pressure? Is there anything to be worried about there with what she's talking about, Rip?
Well, everybody knows I am not a doctor, right? In just looking at that, if you're consuming 1/2 to 3/4 teaspoon per salt a day, I guess you must be tracking it through some app or something like that, and your blood pressure is extremely low. Those numbers right there, because I think about it, 1/2 teaspoon is 1,150. 3/4 would put you up more around 1,1700. I think if you're at 1/2 to 3/4, that's fine. So I'm going to say it's up to you. But again, some people might be able to get away with it. But remember, it also makes our vessels a little more brittle. So I think we need to be cognizant of how much sodium we're taking in during the day.
Okay. Next question real quick. I'm off all added sodium on my whole food plant-based SOS
Way of eating. Way of eating.
Okay. And my numbers have been normal for the first time in decades, thanks to Dr. Esselstyn's book, Reverse and Prevent Heart Disease. It's saving my life. And wow.
Well, you know what? We love hearing testimonials like that, and way to take the kale by the stalk and take your health to the next level.
Arlene says, how much sodium does a person who exercise need? So now,
I'm gonna tell you, that is so personal, depending upon what your sweat rate is. Everybody has a different sweat rate with perspiration. So, and there's actually places where you can get tested for that if you are an athlete, an exerciser. And I don't know any off the top of my head. Yeah. But so it's very personable.
If you're a triathlete and you go to a facility where they test like VO2 max, I'm sure they could give you your sodium, whatever as well.
Yeah. Does arrowroot powder have less salt than cornstarch? I don't know. I'd have to look at some labels, and then I'd know. But off the top of my head, I have no idea.
Me too. Interchangeable. Okay. What kind of salt do you typically or topically add, if any? Oh, Himalayan.
Yeah. Yeah, we just have some pink Himalayan at the house.
Cool. Marzi, can you speak to the intake of fluids being too high if you follow no salt diets? I ended up in the ER on a sodium trip from drinking too much liquids and eating no salt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's something called hyponatremia, but Let me just read this again. Can you speak to the intake of fluids being too high if you follow no salt diets? Well, it sounds like you're having some issues with your kidneys, probably figuring out your potassium and sodium balance. So that's something that you need to take up with your doctor. I'm not the man to ask that.
Yeah, for sure. We can't give medical advice. Okay. Any other questions? I think we are. Let's see. Okay, I'm guessing that's vegan butter that I looked at briefly has salt, but no regular salt butter. What gift? Well, we don't really care too much about butter because all butter is like refrigerated.
Well, I would tell you, like, let's do our best to not buy I can't believe it's not butter, the earth balance spreads and all those. They're 100% fat. Typically the first two ingredients are palm oil and canola oil. And wow. So yeah, let's try and kick that out of our lives.
Yeah. Well, holy cow. Okay. I use an app called Yuka. It has a carrot on it. It rates any food at the grocery store. Cool. Yeah. Go check it out. I love it. All right. We always love good advice and thoughts.
There's another one called Pinto. If people are interested. Yep.
I like Chronometer. I just use that one. I'm a fit vegan chef and I'm told I'm cooking and selling the healthiest food. I'm also running over 4,000. It sounds like you are amazing, Chris. Like, way to go. Holy cow.
Oh yeah, Chris, I think I saw a message from you saying, get me on your podcast. You know what? Send me a little information on yourself to hello@plantstrong.com. And if it makes sense, love to have you on the podcast.
Excellent. All right, everybody. Hey, that's going to be it for now. We're excited. Thank you, Jeanette. We've got a lot of good stuff. Yeah, Chris, much love. So we've got the holiday guide. You got everything you need. I've mentioned it a million times. We're there for you. Black Friday starting, guys. So get in on the fun. If you have any questions, just let us know. We do respond to every comment. So if you have any questions, comments, you need any help finding the guide or something along those lines, just let us know. And we'll be here live for you. Make sure you go on and join the private Facebook community. In fact, I'm going to jump over there right now and I'm going to just say hi to you guys. So come join me in the private Facebook community. You can see that link. We'll put it up there for you again as we leave. But this community is completely free. We are relaunching in Facebook groups and we are so excited about it. Just look for Plant Strong or Go Plant Strong and you'll find us. There's the link right there.
Facebook.com/group/Go Plant Strong. All right.
Yeah, we love it. All right, everybody. Have a great beginning of your holiday. Hopefully the weather's nice and enjoyable where you are. And we'll see you next time. We're here every week at this exact same time. So much love to you. Rip, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Corey, and everybody. Keep that salt to